Welcome back to Big Ben's Outdoors, and today you'll know I am not outdoors. I'm in a garage, and I'm in a cold garage. Now, there's an actual reason or method to my madness here, and that is because I am out here getting ready for a potential very large snowstorm here in Nebraska. I say potential very large snowstorm because often we get these warnings, and it ain't anything to be afraid of, but you should always be prepared. And I was inspired to make this video as I was at the store yesterday watching what people were getting to get prepared, and it clicked to me that oftentimes those of us who spend a lot of times outdoors have exactly what we need to get prepared right here at home, right here in our stuff. Sure, you need food. Okay, I don't get me wrong. If I'm stuck in the house for a few days, I'm gonna get tired of eating ramen noodles after a few days. But if you remember the keys to survival, the things that'll kill you, food, you got a little while. You got a couple weeks before that'll kill you. For those of us that are mucho grande, you got a little longer. The things that will absolutely kill you pretty quick are being too cold, running out of water, or being too hot. Absolutely going to get you every time. Now, we're not going to really worry too much about being too hot. Water is a concern. Always make sure that you have a water stockpile in something like this. But what we're going to make sure is that you can stay warm and that you can survive using the stuff that you have. Now, what's funny about this is a lot of us take this for granted, me included, because in a modern city, modern society, we take for granted that the power is always going to stay on. The house I've lived in here, I've lived in for 15 years now. Prior to the past 2 years, I'm going to use that as a note, I think we had one power outage, and it wasn't very long. The past 2 years, however, we've had a few. We've had a few outages, and they've been some long ones. So, inspired by these events and inspired by the fact that folks down in Texas last year learned the hard way how you shouldn't rely on your power to always be on in the event of a natural disaster and rely on your government to help you out. They're going to do the best they can, but they're people. It's equipment. I work in IT. It's sometimes when something breaks, it's going to take a while, no matter how hard you work. Okay, so just like in my case, and like my grandparents, and some of you, your great grandparents and great great grandparents, they lived in a time where power infrastructure wasn't reliable, or maybe didn't even exist. In my grandparents' case, when they grew up, didn't even exist. Okay, they lived in a time where they didn't have reliable power. So prior to this, they would have been prepared. They would have had stacks of wood ready to go for their wood stoves. They would have had, their canned food ready to go. They would have been hunkered down and good to go. Those of us in modern society, I think we worry a little too much about the Charmin, a little bit too much about the Red Barons and the Ding Dongs and the Twinkies, the Ho-Hos and the sodas, okay? We need to worry about what's going to keep us alive. And today, that's what I'm going to talk about. We're going to kind of go over what I do in preparation for something like this. And I ain't going to spend any money that isn't necessary. I'm not going to buy any new stuff. I'm just going to use my camping stuff to make sure that in the event that the power goes out during this storm, when it's going to be in the teens or lower, that we're not going to just survive. We're going to be fine. We're going to be nice and warm. We're going to have a way out if we need it, and we're going to not have to worry about any of that stuff. So stick around. It's going to be a little journey, as I'm sure my iPhone filming skills ain't the greatest, but thanks again for joining. Here we go. All right, first things first. We're going to start out with inventorying what I need to get. This is my tent tote, and this we're going to come back to later. But this one, again, coming back to later. Don't need anything for that one. I know what's in that one. This, however, is the important one. This is my kitchen tote. Now, two things to note in here. Number one, this guy is going to come back. We're going to talk about him later. And then food. Kind of get an idea. I know what I got there. I'm not too worried about that. And again, we'll talk about it later. The one thing I am worried about is if I look into my kitchen stuff, I have one little MSR bottle of isopropyl. That's it. So I need to get some more supplies. But if you'll note something else, one thing in preparation for this that I just did off camera is I made sure that my big tent, my gazelle gazebo, my big cot, and let's see here, all my sleeping stuff thermarest, sleeping bags. There's a couple back there. There's a sleeping pad. There's another sleeping pad. I want them all right by the door. Again, I'm going to get back to the logic. There's a logic behind why all this is right here. But I also want to make sure that, to stress, this all needs, I want it to be accessible, both to the outside, to get into a truck, or if I need to use it in the home in the event of a power outage. So now I know what I need. We need to go find a can for some diesel, and we need to go find us some propane tanks, and we need to go put some gas in my truck. Here's why. This could be a survival lifeline, okay, for many different ways. Part of the reason I started this YouTube channel was not only to share my adventures and share, show that anybody can do it, because if my old fat butt can do it, anybody can do it. But the other thing is to help educate and learn people from not doing what I do or stupid mistakes I've made in the past. One of those, and it's a whole long story, was there was a time that I got caught in a blizzard in a Honda CRX and ended up through a series of stupid, idiotic mistakes, ended up in a snowbank in a small town a mile away from any safety, with less than a quarter tank of gas. The car had next to no gas, and it was a bad situation. Me and two other guys, we put ourselves in it. Damn near could have been fatal. Let's put it that way. We weren't dressed for the conditions. It was a blizzard. The car was stuck. Car shouldn't have been in. You shouldn't be driving a 1987 Honda CRX in the snow. Let me put it that way, okay? But long story short, since then, I've always, if there's a snowstorm, I'm going to fill up for two reasons. Number one, why this could be a lifeline. Number one, let's say your power's out. It's out for a couple days. You're starting to get really cold. Everybody's wearing thin. You find out there's hotels 40, 50 miles away. It's safe to travel to them. Let's get you there, right? It can get you there. Number two, when you're on your way there, or let's say you're traveling in the winter and you get stuck, in this case, I got 36 gallons. This thing will idle for a week with 36 gallons, okay? You use very little fuel while you're idling. And that brings us into our next point, which is our final point, which is, let's say you are out of power for a couple days or a while, and it's getting really cold and you need some warmth. You weren't prepared. You just need to get some heat in your body. That's when this truck, I can get 5, 6 people and a dog or two. And again, I can run it for a couple days, even if we're stuck in a snowbank, with the heat running, and it's going to be just fine with that 36-gallon tank. So again, big thing, fill up your cars, fill them up. I don't care what you have. I don't care if you have a gigantic Canyon Arrow like I do, or a little Honda Civic. Fill it up before the snowstorm. Now I'm going to go see how, I'm going to go pay the $100. It's not going to be $100. Oof. I love my truck. I'm back. If you couldn't tell, it's already starting to snow. One quick thing I wanted to know before I close the garage door, because it is 18 degrees out and I freeze my butt off. The careful observers in the first video may have noticed that usually these trucks are parked nose to butt. If you look, I put space. Why did I put space between the vehicles? First snowstorm, there's actually a reason. There's actually two. Number one, if we need to get out of here and we don't have any power, everything's gone to heck, and we know somebody that has power, I got room to drop my tailgate, throw the stuff in the back, and get out. Number two, if for some reason that truck doesn't start, this gives me enough room, and for some reason this truck doesn't start, I mean, odds are, if that one doesn't start, one of these two are going to be fine, okay? For some reason that doesn't start, we can't get it out. I can still either, have enough room to maneuver this back and forth to get it out of the driveway, or we can jump start. If for some reason this doesn't start, that's going to start. It's a hybrid. It's going to be fine. We can get this started with that, with the jumper. Same with that. Anyway, just, again, method to the madness. A couple of seconds of thinking these things through could save you a little bit of headache when it's colder and it's not, and 6 feet deep or whatever. I don't know. It's going to be 3 inches, I have a feeling. Okay, so I have returned. As to what we've returned with, 4 canisters of little Coleman propane. Again, method to my madness. Hang tight. And a gallon of diesel. And look, I know that isn't yellow, and I'm going to get the EPA police and their Teslas after me. But look, it's fine. It's fine. It's fuel. It's going to be fine. Believe me when I say I'm the only one. Well, me and the other adult in the house, she and I are the only ones that put fuel in the mower, and that one, obviously, is going to be off to the side, and it says diesel on it. I crossed out gasoline. See, it's EPA approved now. So we have 4 of these. Why I mentioned Green Takes Method of My Madness is because, if you remember in this tote, there is a Coleman stove. And the nice thing about having these for the buddy heater and the Coleman stove is, number 1, portability. Number 2 is because I can use these both on the stove and on the buddy heater. And again, that makes it flexible. That's what I want, flexibility, portability, easy to go. And here, once you maybe get back in here, we need to get something out of here that is important. That is on to our next project. And that is our pals. One of these little guys. We're going to go ahead and pan to, see if I got my charger in here. See, I try to keep everything kind of organized, all right? I got the charger in one of the chargers, and it's ready to go. Also, thing that I forgot to mention, right underneath this is one of my coolers. See that guy there? And over here, that's just a cooler. It's just a Yeti. And then over here is a electric cooler. Why would you need those in a ice storm? That can keep stuff from freezing. Or if you lose power and you don't want to lose all your food, that could save you some money. So think that through. Keep those around. Also, if you need emergency beer, put them in there. So let's get to what we need these for. Now on to power. So you see I have 3 Rockfells here. Again, there's a reason I have 3. This is the original one. If you watch the RC car video that I used, I can get charged 3 at a time. I just can't find the 3rd charger. But I'm charging this one, which is a 300. It's like a 280 watt hour. This one's the 200, and it's like a 224 watt hour. And then behind that is my second 300. So I have 3 of them, charging 2 of them at a time right now. Once one of them is full, we're going to top that one off. Again, but when it gets cold like this, especially if it's stored outside, you want to charge these. Case in point, this one was not at 11%. These, especially these battery banks, man, any of you that have an EV will know that batteries, they get hammered when it's cold. And even though my garage is somewhat insulated, has an insulated door, it's still probably, we'll talk about that in a second. I have a temperature gauge over there. It's about 46, 47 degrees in here. So it isn't warm. You want these 100% charged. Because again, if you lose power, this could be part of a lifeline, right? This could keep your stuff charged. It could keep some lights on. It can, keep that cell phone charged. So in case you need something, you can call someone. These things are great. Usually how I use this is this one's powering a fridge or something else, and then this one's in my tent. So that's going to get revamped later. Well, that'll be a whole nother video at some point when I finally buy it. And then that one's a backup. So we got these charging. They'll probably take a little while. And then now we will move on to heat. Heat, that's the most important thing if we lose power. Okay, furthering talking about stuff. In the event we lose power, we need to stay warm, stay alive. Here's our heat source, which just so happens to be my heat source for cold weather camping. And we'll get into that later. Or a future video, you'll probably see a lot more on that, but it's a Vevor diesel heater. There's a bunch of these. Literally, they're known as Chinese diesel heaters. This one has served me pretty well. And so for this, it's got a full gallon of diesel in it for just a little bit under a full gallon. And then I got another gallon, which those two together, they would get us probably, if we ran it on low, probably a day and a half, 2 days. So that's a lot of heat. Behind it, you'll see there is a deep cycle battery that'll be running this. That is all that's going to do. And that's pulled out of my boat, my dinghy. And it's in a battery box. So to keep things safe. And talking really quick, if you see this exhaust pipe, please ignore the trash. I haven't cleaned my garage. It's cold. Okay. This exhaust, that's something we're going to have to figure out. I don't have a good plan for that. Worst case scenario, crack the garage door open, run this, this dryer vent hose. And again, you'll see this in a future video, is how I pipe the heat into my tent. So we just pipe it in the door of the house, or garage is big enough that we can just set up a tent in the garage next to it. And on top of the box of painting supplies is a bag that has a lot of mugs and stuff and is kind of ready to go for that kind of stuff. Dog bed. That's important. And then our backup heat source is the Buddy heater. Buddy heater is great. I love the Buddy heater. There's a reason why it's next to my workbench. It's because I use them a lot. It has its downsides, has its upsides. We also have this heater, which I don't know if the rock pals will even start it, but the Buddy heater doesn't need power. All it needs is those little propane canisters. And again, there's a method to my madness why I'm using the green cans, and this one's already loaded, ready to go, is because I want to have something universal. And I don't want to keep a big propane tank in the garage. So there's probably some logical fallacy there, but since I have this, not too worried about that. Okay, so we got that. And then most important thing, carbon monoxide detector. There's a reason this is sitting right here on my workbench, okay? Here's my dirty workbench. Please don't judge. I don't care if you judge. It's a workbench. It gets work done, okay? Mostly twice. There's a reason why this is right here. It's because when I'm working out here, I want this as close to this as possible. Okay, so these things are generally very safe, but anytime you are running a heat source indoors, you have to have a carbon monoxide detector, period, end of story. This usually sits as close to this as possible, or it is in that first tote in my camping stuff. That's kind of where it goes. I need to actually get a dedicated one for the garage because the house we have, it's built in the smoke alarms, so I need a dedicated one just for the garage. But again, always have one of these. If you're running this, or you're running this, even if you're piping that in somewhere else and the exhaust is safely outdoors, I don't care. Have this. It'll save your life, or potentially. So that is it for the heat. And one last note as we wrap it up, even though, as I've mentioned, my garage it's messy. I haven't cleaned it this winter. I've taken a couple trips, so it is a mess. There's a reason why there's a clear path to everything, and that's what I was alluding to before. Like I said, we got coolers. We got my camping totes with survival stuff in it. Survival. We have our diesel and EPA approved can. For diesel heater, we have a couple chairs. But most importantly, we have tent, and then we have sleeping bags, sleeping pads, thermarest, a futon mattress. We got all that stuff over there. And that is all easy to get to because in the event we lose power, in the event it's cold, I don't want to have to be rummaging around. I want a clear path to all that, to cot. All that stuff is right there. Well, thank you for joining me as I prepared for the snowstorm, and hopefully I don't have to use any of this stuff. Hopefully it's just a nice little snowstorm that the city gets cleared off right away. Furnaces keeps the house nice and warm at 70, 72 degrees. We stay inside, we have some fun, we relax, we watch some movies or what have you, and we don't worry about anything. But the best part is to be prepared so you don't have to worry. You don't have to be like those poor folks in Texas last year that got caught unprepared and their power company couldn't hold up. We don't want to be that. And as you saw with everything today, I didn't spend a dime that wasn't necessary. This was all stuff, honestly, I probably should have had already. Probably already should have had my propane for my winter camping. Probably already should have had a gallon of diesel for the diesel heater for winter camping. Probably already should have had the truck full of gasoline. The one unnecessary-ish purchase is tonight's beer, and that was a 6-pack of this, which seemed oddly appropriate, and that would be Alaskan Amber. Given given the weather that's coming up, it seems like drinking a beer from Alaska is very appropriate. Good night, everybody. I hope you stay safe, stay warm, and in the event that something does happen, grab your camping gear. And if you do use it, that just gives you an excuse to buy more. See you next time.